And now here, in this part of the shop, we're making mushrooms. We're going to end up with about almost 20 of these when we're done. And there's going to be a hole drilled in the bottom big enough for it to slip very tightly over rebar. And we're going to hammer rebar into the ground in all the spots that need it. And put these down on the rebar on all the corners, all the pertinent corners of the garden that matter. So when we drag water hoses around those corners, the water hoses won't get up into the garden. Okay, so here's the remaining ones that still need the tops cut off. Just a result of, you know, lathe work. The rest of them he already did for me. Big bucket of them. We'll get them all out here in a minute, but now I'm going to take this Sawzall here and I'm going to cut the tops off of all these and then start smoothing them up. That way I can, I'm not really going to smooth them up too much. I'm just going to cut the tops off and then I'm going to figure out exactly my hole size and depth and get each one of them drilled. Then I'm going to go through and smooth them all up. So now I've got this standard piece of rebar here off of some project. I don't know, it was just laying around. And I'm going to need more of them. I'm going to need about 30 feet of it, maybe a little more, because I want to do it in 18-inch sections. So for now, I'm going to take this drill bit. I'm going to take each one of these guys. As soon as I'm done lopping the top off, I'll spin each one around and drill a hole. But I'm going to start by drilling a hole just in a piece of waste wood, a 2x4 or something like that, and see how well it is going to work for this. All right, so here's all 20 of them. 19 mushrooms in one lamp. And all of them have passed the spin test. They all sit on the rebar and they'll spin freely. They're all drilled to the same depth. So now we can start deciding on designs. All right, so I've got all these mushrooms. I'm going to go ahead and clear them back off here and put them in a box. I'm going to get my station set up for cutting these 3 10-foot chunks of rebar up into 18-inch sections. And now I've got it all set up where I can cut out 18-inch sections until there aren't any more. 18-inch sections. So what I've gone and done is I've taken one of these decking screws, screwed it in right here, and it sticks up enough to where that holds itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drive 19 more of those, evenly spaced, and all these guys can just sit up here while we decide what to paint them. Just like that. Now we're ready to single them out and start working on them. And so what I've done here is I've just taken a piece of regular masking tape and I've just taken this razor and just cut a bunch of little circles in it. And they weren't perfect circles, they don't have to be. But there's a bunch, there's well over 40 I think. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to peel this back. See how that begins to reveal them. But it'll be a little bit tedious. I'll be in there with a razor chewing out the little edges and getting it all cleaned up probably. But you can see kind of the way that's going to go. So I'll peel all this off and get those singled out so I can begin putting them on these mushrooms. And as you can see, I've already done much larger circles and I've put them on every single one of them except for the lampshade. 2 to 3 on every one. And now I'm going to put 2 to 3 of the small ones. And I started out cutting them out of vinyl, but I realized I could be quite a bit more effective just cutting them out of paper tape. So these ones are done, but I've got enough to do the rest of them now. You can see I'm just picking them off there and just putting them on these guys wherever they work. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take these 5 colors. We've got a really bright orange, we've got a nice red, really nice darker blue, purple, and then a nice medium green. And I'm going to take a little bit of each one, put it in a cup, thin it down a lot, and turn it into stain. So now I've got all my dots installed on everything. And now I'm ready to start mixing up some stain. So what I have here is paint that's been mixed with catalyst, so it's active. That's also been mixed about 10, maybe even 15 to 1. It's at least 10 to 1. I didn't actually do a I didn't actually do a measurement on it, but I thinned it out a lot. You can't even hardly see it. I mean, it leaves legs on the side of the cup that clear up in just a second or two. I mean, it's real thin. And I'm going to use that as stain for these guys. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that stain and I'm going to basically run a wash over every one of these and then quickly wipe it right back off, just so they have the hue that I'm looking for. All right, so we got them all unmasked. And the outlines on a lot of these were a little bit fuzzy, so I just went ahead and did a pen around them, sharpen them up a little bit, just so they're just a hair sharper. Then I'm going to go ahead and dip these guys. I'm going to clean up, if there's just a couple little spots like this, I'm going to sand those out, and then I'm going to put sealer on all of these and all the stems, and they're good to go. Now I'm going to take each one, I'm just going to dip them, get the stem soaking wet, and then set them all back on here. And then here in an hour or so, we'll start placing them. And now I'm going to go ahead and pack all these guys up in this bucket right here. And I'm going to haul them outside, drive the stakes in the ground in the spots where they go, and get all these guys set. So here's a deck we built. It's going to be installed here a couple hours away from here on the side of a house. It's just a smaller deck, but we built it in a kit form where this is all complete, ready to go. These are all complete, ready to go. All the measurements are taken. Everything is all the length it needs to be. We'll cut those on site. And then this is ready to go. The right angle, everything has already been established and already been screwed together. All the top rails have already been pieced out and cut. This is just the pieces of a kit of a deck that we'll put together here within the next week or so, a couple hours away from here. So here's the entrance to Gardner, one of the entrances, and here's how these are going to sit, because we'll pull water hoses from there. That's where the main watering hub for this end of the garden is. This is the red hose I use. It's a 100-footer. So I'll come around this corner with it and go down there and do some watering, and then when I pull it back up, I'll come around this corner with it, and this guy will roll. They all turn, and then when I come down here, this one will catch it. But we don't have these at every single corner of every single spot in the garden, just the ones where I water. We have two big gardens. My wife waters one, I water the other, and since I know exactly where I drag the hose, I'm the one that had these installed in the perfect spots. So it's not on every corner, because I go back into this path, water all these peach and cherry trees, and then come back out and then round this corner. And so that's why there's two there, and even though this is a path as well, there's none right here, because I never go down this path. And I don't water when I go down. I don't go down this path to water either. There's just that one tree that I hit when I deep water, so there's no need for them there. And then down here, there's 4 in a row, because I go down this path a lot, and I go down this little path to go in there and water all those trees. A lot of fruit trees back in there. And so then when I come back out, you see we've got one there, one there, one there, and there. And same with when I come down here. I never go that direction, so there isn't one. And I go this direction every single time to finish watering those apple trees, so there is one. So they're not in symmetrical places, they're just in useful places. So off of this corner is one. Off of this corner is one. And then when I do my watering around here, I've got 3 of the 4 corners of this bed, which has got a Flaming Fury, I think is what it's called. Peach. And that's why there's 3 of the 4 corners have one in it. And then there's just one more down there on the corner. A couple right there. Those hoses are permanent. But I do drag the hose up and around this corner to do watering up here. And then there's just one more right there. And that rounds it out. And that's one way, if a person has access to a lathe or somebody that has a lathe, to affordably use some landscaping timbers, a couple of very affordable pieces of rebar, to outfit the garden with a way that you will not be breaking off plants with hoses anymore. See you guys around.